Hello everybody, welcome back to Let's Go Grassroots and welcome to ISI Automotive in Bedford, Nova Scotia. This is where, silver lining, the BMW E46 M3 that I race, that you guys want to get to know, this is where it went from a street car to a race car. We're going to go inside and join Steve Phillips, the man who built the car, and go over it from bumper to bumper so you guys can get to know the car that I race, get to know the car that we run throughout this series, and Jaden's just going to be Jaden and hang out. Jaden, were you sleepy? Were you sleepy? Were you sleepy? That's ISI currently. This is where ISI used to be. That's where this car came to be. I bought it as a 2001 BMW E46 M3 salvage title from Quebec. I bought it in January, I think January 12th, 2017 to be exact. I never saw the car until I walked behind this building. 4 months later, it was done. It was already a race car.
Ooh, it is badass, isn't it?
My picnic table for lunch tomorrow. I can drive. I mean, I think I can drive. You guys can be the judge of that. I can drive okay, but I am the least mechanical driver in the world. Without Steve, this car wouldn't be what it is. And every time I have an issue, I always consult with him. So Steve stayed late to work on his diff for his car. We're gonna steal him in a second. Kevin's come very kindly to help us film. And yeah, we'll go over the finer points. All right, so Steve's gonna join us for a bit. He'd never heard of me at all until 2017. I didn't even know what I wanted to do originally. I said street car and we were just gonna build a glorified street car, and then you laughed and gave me a quote and I laughed at you and said that's not gonna happen, and here we are. Yep. We'll start at the front. So all race cars obviously have quick release hoods for the sake of safety and marshals. So aero catch, the obvious choice. Nothing crazy under here, Steve?
Yep, this engine's basically stock. We did some maintenance. We did rod bearings and rod bolts. We rebuilt the vanos. And other than that, the engine is bone stock with an epic tune.
You've worked, yeah, just to give more background on that as well, you've worked with TRG, yep, Aston Martin, so Porsches, BMWs, Turner.
Speed World Challenge, IMSA, Grand Am, American Le Mans, basically over the last, basically all the 2000s I worked at. Yep. I kind of retired when I opened the shop in 14.
Fair enough. Retired from racing into this world, yeah, where you had the luxury of building the most famous race car you've ever worked on, yeah, obviously. Yeah. It runs MCS double two-way adjustable suspension, coilover setup, both front and rear on the E46. So compression's adjusted here, and rebound is done on the top of the strut. Obviously this runs a hose from the adjustment canister down to the bottom of the strut. Intakes, nothing crazy on this car, pretty modest actually for a race car, but does have a slightly different airbox than what you would find in a stock car. It also has obviously an upgraded radiator for the purposes of better air intake and cooling throughout the life as it is as a race car on the track. Underneath is where perhaps the most interesting mods have been made. Exhaust is obviously changed, single exit exhaust. It's about, I would assume, 360 horsepower. I assume about 280, 290 at the wheels. We've never actually dynoed it. I haven't done too much to the engine yet because that's when things start to break.
Yes.
You start putting power in and then all of a sudden everything goes bang. We're kind of building up to that slowly.
Yeah, you're on year 3 now, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there's still a few mods I'd like to do in terms of aero as well. I'd love to have a full diffuser, but that comes with complications of fuel tank in the way and exhaust in the way, so you kind of have to take the fuel tank out to let the exhaust go side, and it's a whole bunch more. The budget doesn't allow everything all at once either, so we did put in a second fuel pump.
Yeah, so basically it's a saddle-shaped tank, and the fuel sloshes from one side to the other. So you put a pump in the right and the left side so that you can pull fuel from both sides on either right or left turns.
Right, which definitely works because we've got a few really off-camber, yep, long corners. 4 at AMP would starve it. I think probably 9 would be the same. Yep. 11 maybe over the hill. Obviously it's changed to all the mounts. As you said, we dropped from the 6 to the 5. When you did that,
yes,
drive shaft.
Yeah, we had to lengthen the drive shaft to take up the lost distance in the gearbox, basically. Also, this car has a Tilton race clutch, a 5.5-inch twin disc clutch with a steel flywheel. So it's about 12 pounds, I believe.
It's kind of like an on-off switch.
It is an on-off switch, yeah, there's no slip.
They edited it out, but in the very first episode when I was pulling it out of the garage, I was a little rusty in the off-season. I stalled like 5 times in that episode, so thank you to the editors for taking all of that out. They're really, really light though, as you say, and the no flywheel, when it's idling, you can hear it rattling.
Yes.
The reason, by the way, you switch from a 6-speed to a 5-speed box is 6 is just overdrive.
It is, yep.
And it's a lot of weight.
It's a good 30-pound difference, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worth the swap.
We went with, or I guess I went with, a 3.91 differential. That's from the stock 3.63. It's built by Diffs Online with a 35-60 ratio. It handles extremely well, has great power delivery, and it's built like an absolute tank. 3.91 suits our track very well. A lot of people go 410, but we're pretty happy with it. The most recent modification, obviously, in putting on the brake kit, you guys heard about it in the first race episode. Lots of problems with the ABS. We now went from the original MK to the MK60.
The MK20 lived over in this compartment here, and it had a pre-charge pump that sent fluid over, and all the wiring came out of there. So we had to reroute all the lines over to this corner and then rewire everything into this corner as well. So it's a faster, smarter computer, and it should react a little bit better.
I'm not reacting as well to it yet. I'm still learning the braking. I've never had brakes that will lock up before, so I've kind of just been like the lazy driver that hammers on them and they do the rest. Obviously, the biggest change in the front end is aesthetic, but it's not just for looks that we have the canards, that we have the splitter. Both of those do a massive amount in helping the car handle. You went with the standard BMW kit, I think, that every club racer runs.
BMW CCA was kind of one of the motivations for the car, so we kind of copied their rule set basically and used stuff that would give you the ability to run everywhere without being illegal, I guess.
In terms of where I sit, Momo wheel, and it's a 320 wheel. I like a small steering wheel. I always have since karting. A lot of the people that I drive with find that it is too close to the roll bar, and that's something that I could cut some of the roll bar padding out, but I don't notice it as much. I lower the wheel as much as possible and pull it forward, and I tend to hold in a way that doesn't get caught up, but some of my co-drivers have mentioned it. Radio box, we basically run a Motorola radio kit that goes inside there and then hooks up to the push-to-talk button on my steering wheel. We'll climb in. This is my office. Really, it is, in a lot of ways. The OMP HDER seat, a lot of people find them snug. I find in the midsection it's a bit loose. Steve switched to a Sparco this year in his car that looks a little better, but until this guy expires, this is what I'm running. The Schroth Hanslock Enduro belts that go over the top, if I can find it, and lock nicely onto my Hans device. It's a 6-point harness, so I don't have anything directly on my nuts, but on either side of them. New to this week, and just added by Steve, we have, I'm not very good with it yet, we have a steering wheel hook. The reason being, the biggest reason my defroster on the front failed was that I used to take this out and put it on the dash, but this metal collar that is on the quick release actually cut one of the circuits on the defroster, and that's the reason it failed. So we've now got a steering wheel hook to make sure that I don't do that again. CAE shifter, this was one of my choices. Saw it in a video in the Nürburgring. Thought it looked amazing. Super quick. Super easy, as you guys have seen. And it's very accurate, very direct. Spring loaded, returns to center. I really like it. It's fun, if anything, but also extremely accurate and makes some of the shifts, especially on the bumps at AMP, a lot more manageable.
They're in at least 4 cars now that we've had a hand in, yeah. They're excellent. They really are. The most direct, easiest shifter I've ever used.
Dash is stock. I haven't elected to do anything to that yet. Eventually, someday, I'll have a full data system in here. Likewise, these don't do anything as of yet, but we could perhaps add something onto those circuits. Lap timers here. Based on GPS, that's where I get both predictive and previous lap. That's instrumental in driving the car. If I change my line at all, if I change a braking point at all, if I'm trying to learn something new, biggest thing that's gonna be right and wrong or tell you right and wrong is your lap time. I do have the bigger mirror that lets me see a lot more both out of the right side of the car but also behind me. Left side, I just keep this mirror pretty snugged along the side. It's not too open because I tend to be pretty good with my peripheral, so I don't have to see everywhere around me, but I need to be spatially aware. Pedal box is stock, as you've seen. Nice board added in by Steve and a dead pedal onto the roll cage. Just as the hood though, you have to have easy access for safety purposes, so it does indeed have the spring releases. Again, in the back you can see the MCS double canisters, smaller battery, full OMP fire suppression system that's mounted into the cage. Obviously the cage bolts straight into the strut towers and the subframe in a race car. A proper cage should. Was there anything on this car that I guess, put it this way, was this car as an accident repair car in average shape, good shape, bad shape?
It was in pretty good shape when we got it. There was a little bit of surface rust underneath, and we also took all the sealant and all the undercoating off the car to probably drop another 30 or 40 pounds total.
Yeah, I remember you sending me pictures of that, actually.
Yeah,
that looked like a hell of a job.
That was terrible. I hate that. Yeah.
I never was around for any of this process, which I'm sure was actually probably more annoying, because I think I was just messaging you constantly looking for updates. The longest decision, I think, on me building the whole car was actually deciding what color to paint the inside. You had to wait. You wanted silver.
That's the outside. It would have been good, yeah.
Yep.
The white's fine, too.
I like the white until I realized how friggin' dirty it gets.
It does get dirty.
You actually cleaned this thing by taking the seat out and everything before the last race, and unfortunately, it doesn't look that way right now. But
it lasts about one race.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Inside, full X crossbar on the top. That allows it to be rally certified. Also has the bigger door brace on the passenger side for the same reason. If I ever put in a passenger seat and wanted to run a Targa or any full rally, not that I would in this car, but I could. It does run the Schroth mid-window net. Optional at our track, but highly recommend. You don't want anything to come loose in the car and find its way onto the driver. Just to go back to the extinguisher, because you can see it better from this angle. It runs 6 nozzles, 2 on top of the gas tanks, 2 on top of the driver, and 2 on top of the engine. So it is the full suppression system. You added a fire extinguisher pull cord that's accessible to marshals.
Yes.
Obviously, the standard position is in the center console.
They like to have one accessible from the outside. It makes it a little easier for marshals to lean in, and they can see it pretty easily, too, from the outside.
And there is the kill switch. At our track, they don't make it mandatory that you have to have an external kill switch. Some people have them sort of here on the bonnet.
Yeah, they have solenoid-based ones that are 3 times the money of those, basically.
It doesn't kill full power, though.
It separates the battery and then isolates the ignition circuit from the engine, too, so it'll kill both.
Okay. Water bottle mount, which I have in the trailer. I don't use it much, but that does work for me. It basically works like a Camelback. It goes straight into my helmet. I can drink it should I need to. Carbon fiber roof. Most E46s do come with a sunroof. Pretty rare if you find one without one, actually, the M3 especially. And rather than just doing the insert, I put the full roof on it because it was the easier way to go, save some weight up top. Brakes. As you've seen, riding inside of the 9.5-inch wheels, the Arc Apex Arc 8s, is the PFC Big Kit running 355 rotor size. In the back runs 328. They're pretty amazing. I'm pretty impressed with the brakes themselves. It's just me that's got to get used to them. So just as I didn't know that I was going to make it a race car, I also apparently didn't know what I was going to do with the livery. I said originally I didn't want to be a cliche. I didn't want to be everyone's M colors. I didn't want the BMW stripes. The livery was designed by a local gentleman who also did the livery design for ISI, and he saw the build and sent the photos in voluntarily, and I loved it. So that's why we ended up here. With the stripes as they are. It's based on the M6 GT3 before they switched to the M8. That was kind of the BMW livery for IMSA. That's where we went with it. The name of the car, Silver Lining, is kind of based on a joke. The silver lining to the fact that my bank account is empty is that I have a race car. So it's a pretty high-end build in terms of budget for Grassroots. You can do things probably for less. You can get into a Miata, MX-5 Cup Series, C1 for you guys in the UK. There's lots of things you can do that may not cost as much, but there's not much that's more fun, I will say, for the value of this car, and it just is an absolute pleasure to drive. You did a heck of a job because I jumped in it for the first time. I was a little bit subdued when I saw it, not because I wasn't excited, but because I was nervous. But when I got there and drove it, I mean, we were out of the trailer straight on the track and second in class on pace immediately, which isn't something that happens to every race car.
The ones we build.
Oh, well, there you go. ISI, self-plug. Yeah, sick. I don't know like how formal we are. Is this where we like shake hands and say like good job, partner? Okay, well, all right, he said no. I'll put a full list down below in the description, right beside that like button that you should hit because it helps support us on Let's Go Racing and specifically to build this in Let's Go Grassroots. Again, it's self-shot. These guys are doing the magic with the editing, but I'll put the link to the build sheet down there and you guys can get the full spreadsheet. I don't mind sharing that with you for anyone who thinks there's any secrets. There's not. A lot's gone into it over 3 years. Every year something new gets added or changed, and that's how we ended up where we are.